because the areas which are being excluded from Portmore are areas which are well known to have strong support for the People's National Party. So we will begin with Portmore. As you are aware, the People's National Party and opposition have been long in objection to the approach being taken by the government to dealing with this matter of the status of Portmore. We submitted a minority report to the Joint Select Committee that had reviewed the proposal for Portmore to become a parish. And I think it's important to make the point that our concern with this is partly about the process that has been followed, more fundamentally about the abuse of our democracy that it entails. And we have no particular objection to the idea of Portmore acquiring parish status at some time. However, I think the idea is being sold on a false premise by the government, because Portmore doesn't currently have the amenities that one associates with a parish, and it will continue to rely on surrounding parishes for those amenities when it becomes a parish. I think it's also important to note that the legislation is not yet passed, and when it is passed, assuming that they do pass it in the Senate, it will not be in effect. The legislation has a provision that it cannot come into effect until the minister, who would be the Minister of Local Government, issues what's called an appointed day notice, stating the date on which the new law would come into effect. I just mentioned that because I've seen quite a lot out there suggesting that this thing is already in effect. It is not. Now, on the question of the democracy and the process by which this is being pursued, it has been quite clear to us for a long time that this exercise is entirely a political manipulation exercise, a boundary manipulation exercise. The establishment of Portmore as a parish is being done by legislation which sets out the boundaries of that parish when it comes into effect. Those boundaries cut into the middle of two constituencies. Those boundaries run through East Central St. Catherine and South St. Catherine. Therefore, it will necessitate boundary realignment, and that the matter of boundary alignment for constituencies and electoral divisions has been vested in the Electoral Office of Jamaica and the Electoral Commission of Jamaica that supervises the electoral office, in order to ensure that decisions that are made about electoral boundaries are derived and achieved through a process which is led by the technocrats in the EOJ and ECJ, but has the benefit of the input of both political parties who are represented on the ECJ. And the result of that has been that consensus is how these matters are settled. In this instance, that has been completely undermined, because the boundaries which will dictate the constituency and electoral division boundaries for the areas affected by this, that whole exercise has bypassed and ignored and has been done without the input of the Electoral Office of Jamaica and the ECJ. And we strongly abhor that approach to this. It is being done entirely to secure electoral advantage to the Jamaica Labour Party, because the areas which are being excluded from Portmore are areas which are well known to have strong support for the People's National Party. But more importantly, it sets a very dangerous precedent, because it can be done again where parish boundaries can be gerrymandered without the input of the ECJ and the EOJ to secure partisan political benefit. And Jamaica has moved away from that kind of insidious political practice from the 1980s. And by convention, these matters are vested in the Electoral Office of Jamaica and the technocrats in there, superintended and overseen by the Electoral Commission, where there's bipartisan representation and a strong independent representation, and which has always managed to achieve consensus on these matters. These matters come to Parliament having been reviewed and determined by the Electoral Office and the ECJ, and by convention, Parliament doesn't second guess their decisions. Parliament adopts their decisions by convention. This matter has turned that whole thing on its head and is proceeding down a dangerous path which we strongly object to. Furthermore, the rights of the people of Portmore are being severely undermined, their democratic governance rights. They advocated in the 90s and the early part of this century for Portmore to be a city. They advocated for the right to directly elect their mayor. They are the only part of Jamaica that has the right of directly electing their mayor. And the most recently elected mayor, who won by a handsome majority in the February 2024 local government elections, is seated on my left to your right, His Worship Leon Thomas. And this legislation is going to undermine and destroy that right given to the people of Portmore, because Portmore will become a municipal corporation. It will no longer be a city municipality under the Local Governance Act, and there will be no role for a directly elected mayor in that construct. It will be the way that other local authorities, municipal corporations and other parishes are structured, where it's the councillors who from among themselves choose somebody to chair the council, who is then the mayor. There's also provision in the charter for Portmore citizenship for citizens groups to have audience on the council of the Portmore city municipality. And it is deepening the democracy to have civil society represented on the council in that way. That charter is being repealed by this bill that was passed yesterday on Tuesday in the House, and will be no more. So that deepening of community involvement in the local governance process is being destroyed as well. So it's a very retrograde step from the point of view of local governance, from the point of view of democratic participation, from the point of view of our political system and political practice, which has grown to be admired internationally because of the work of what was the Electoral Advisory Committee, and which became the Electoral Commission of Jamaica and the Electoral Office that sits under it.